Okay, so I got my husband. I've locked him down. We're in the car and he can't go anywhere. So this is the perfect time to do a video and ask Brandon some questions about the church and IHOP and the whole process of how we found the church that we're at now. Because that was a long one, wasn't it?
Yes.
Like the whole process.
Yes.
And you can keep your eyes on the road, and I'll just ask you the questions.
Okay.
So, basically, our start to all of this, you don't want to do this while we're driving.
No, it's fine.
Our start to all of this, we started dating and Brandon lived in a different city. And Brandon came and tried IHOP with me early into our dating, but it was not for him. And why don't you kind of talk about that, your first impressions, and why you decided that you didn't want to attend? Because that was kind of the start of me officially leaving. I hadn't been going consistently since the difficult relationship that I had, and I think that when I started dating Brandon and he didn't want to go, that was kind of like, I'll just find somewhere else to go then.
Well, I didn't really like the vibe, first of all. It was too focused on experiences and not at all focused on grounding those experiences in the Word of God.
Okay, can you give like an example or two?
For example, a very obvious example is if you're a regular person in the IHOP community, you're not called a Christian, you're called an IHOPper. And nobody can give you a clear answer of what it means to be an IHOPper.
I remember at the Bible study you kept asking.
And pretty much the closest thing you can get to an answer is someone who goes to IHOP and goes to the university, just does everything IHOP does. That was about it. And I just really didn't like that. It was always about following IHOP, not about following Christ.
I have to interrupt. We should go to Sam's because we'll get a discount on gas. Their membership. We're getting gas because I'm out. Thanks, Brandon, for filling up my tank. So, yeah, that was a great example of, like, how it can have kind of a bubble that other people... It's kind of like whenever you go to school at Texas A&M, people say from the inside looking out, you can't explain it, and from the outside looking in, you can't understand it. And that's how IHOP is, but that's not really how the gospel is supposed to be, or the culture of Christianity is supposed to be, right, Brandon?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, good example.
And so, I mean, if that's where the congregation is, you can only imagine how far off the leadership is.
Yeah.
That's my experience and my understanding, because you're only as strong as your weakest member, and you're only as solid as the new guy that's been there for a month, how well connected he is. So,
probably.
And if people who've been in there 10 years can't give you a direct answer, there's a lot of disconnect that I do not want to attempt to engage.
Yeah, Brandon did ask a lot of questions early on about the theology and about, like, what is it that you guys believe and so forth. And it was very difficult for you to get a straight answer from anyone, including me, about the internal workings, explaining things like, whenever you have a job, they say that you are in the marketplace. And Brandon would say stuff like, well, why is that? Why don't they just say you're a part of the church, like a normal person? So there's things like that where there's, because of the way it is set up with people who earn their livings, with jobs, and then people who earn their livings support raised, I do think that it gets a little complicated. And so maybe that's another thing about the vibe, is the support raised way of doing it can complicate things.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of things that were off. I mean, that was probably the most blatant. And then there's the obvious. People were perfectly capable of working, performing in trades, working hard, didn't, and would choose to go to the prayer room instead and call it work. Doesn't make sense. It's not at all anywhere I read about that in the Word of God. So, like, it's confusing.
Kind of the opposite.
Yeah, I mean, you're I don't know. Like, well, we do missions all the time, and we do mission trips. We are part of ministry, and we work our butts off in order to provide for everything we do. And that's directly what the apostles tell to do. Apostle Paul talks about, we did not burden you. We did not burden everybody. We worked our butts off to make sure we were taken care of and had all our needs met. The Bible says you don't work, you don't eat. And I think there is a place where I have known people who were literally quadriplegic or tetraplegic and could not move out of bed, and their ministry was to pray. And I think it's kind of like I don't know, and to compare that to a 25-year-old kid who's fully functioning, who just doesn't have the discipline to go get a job and do something, is confusing to me.
Well, and then he turns around, and whenever you try to employ them and kind of father or mother them into a work ethic, they turn around and say that you're being legalistic or self-righteous, or because you're giving them critique, or because you're trying to teach them, hey, like, your standard needs to be higher for what you're delivering if you're going to charge for this service. And we've had a few of those experiences.
Yeah.
So let's push pause and continue after we get gas.